Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Donald Trump is in South Korea. They gave him a golden crown, their highest award, and a brownie called Peacemaker's Dessert. The Koreans have turned flattery into a fine art and they walked away with a trade deal. I'm sure the world is taking notes. Meanwhile, Trump is being himself and digressing dramatically. At a CEO's conference, he talked about India and Pakistan. He mimicked Prime Minister Modi. What does he want from India? We'll discuss that tonight. Also, he's meeting Chinese President Xi Jinping tomorrow. We'll set it up for you. In the world of business, a major move. Nvidia has bought a $1 billion stake in Nokia. Yes, the phone company, it's still around. Also in focus, why Indian market regulator SEBI says mutual funds are expensive and how it plans to change that. Why the EU top brass may be chief guests for India's next Republic Day. Why Pakistan is threatening to obliterate their former proteges, the Taliban. Why France is adopting a consent-based rape law. And what's the new supersonic jet that flies quietly? We're also tracking the mass killings in Darfur. The horror can be seen from space. Satellite images show pools of blood. We will bring you the report. The headlines first. Nvidia becomes the world's first $5 trillion company. It's the latest milestone for the artificial intelligence chip maker. Just 3 months ago, it was the first company to break through the $4 trillion barrier. The surge in Nvidia's share price follows strong sales and a flurry of new deals. The price of copper hits a record high, boosted by hopes of a truce in the US-China trade war. Copper has risen more than 25% in value this year. The new high beats the record set in May last year. The metal is used in military hardware, solar panels, as well as consumer electronics. Russia successfully tests a nuclear-capable underwater drone as President Vladimir Putin defies the United States. Donald Trump had warned Moscow against conducting a second test. On Sunday, Russia had tested another advanced nuclear-capable weapon. Moscow claims the drone can reach any continent in the world. Hundreds protest in Tanzania's largest city as polls open in the East African country. Most of the opposition leaders have either been jailed or barred from contesting. Angry demonstrators set a police station on fire and tore down banners of the president. And Hurricane Melissa batters the Caribbean, leaving roads and homes flooded in Cuba after making landfall there. Floods have killed at least 10 people in Haiti. The hurricane has also devastated large parts of Jamaica. Melissa is the most intense storm ever to make landfall since 1935. Diplomatic visits are usually polite affairs. They are choreographed, there are protocol guides, and there's little room for candid moments. But with Donald Trump, all of that is out of the window. The US president does what he wants to do, and the world rushes to flatter him. Take the last leg of his Asia tour. Trump flew to South Korea today. US and South Korean warplanes escorted Air Force One. That's the US presidential plane, Air Force One. And the moment Trump landed, he was greeted by a familiar tune, the sound of YMCA. The high-energy disco hit has become his unlikely anthem, and Seoul made sure it was blaring it loud. Also, South Korea did not just roll out the red carpet, it lacquered it in gold. The US president got a few honors in the country, a golden replica crown, and the Grand Order of Mugunghwa. This is South Korea's highest honor. Trump is the first American leader to get it, and he wanted to don it immediately.
I'd like to wear it right now.
Just 2 weeks ago, Trump was facing the No Kings protest at home. And now he's been given a gigantic crown. Talk about irony. Also, the flattery did not stop there. Even the menu was designed to flatter him. The starter was called The Success of New York. It's a hint at Trump's life story. For the main course, there was Korean platter of sincerity. The highlight was American beef. And the dessert, it was called Peacemaker's Dessert, a sugary tribute to Trump's self-declared role as peacemaker-in-chief. It consisted of a brownie adorned with gold. Clearly, the South Koreans went out of their way to please Trump. But behind the crown and the dessert was the real negotiation, a trade deal. South Korea was angling for a deal, and this trip finally delivered that. Seoul secured a deal. What does it include? Lower tariffs on automobiles. South Korea's auto export was still subject to 25% tariffs. This deal brings it down to 15%. So now they have 15% tariffs. Seoul also gets better semiconductor tariff terms. And what does Washington get? Well, Trump has secured what he likes best, investments. The US president demanded $350 billion in investments, and South Korea agreed to it. $200 billion of that will be upfront in cash. $150 billion will be invested via shipbuilding partnerships.
Our deal with the Republic of Korea will be finalized very soon, like moments or very shortly thereafter. These agreements will be incredible victories for all of us.
From there, it was time for another dinner. World leaders have gathered in Gyeongju for the APEC summit. APEC is the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation. It is a regional grouping of 21 economies, all part of the Asia-Pacific region. The goal of the group is to promote free trade and economic cooperation, and the US is part of it. So are countries like Japan, Australia, Russia, Canada, and China. Seoul is hosting the APEC summit this year. Leaders of most member countries are in attendance. Trump shook hands with most of them. But there's one counterpart he ignored. Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada. Trade tensions are simmering again between the US and Canada. Trump has increased tariffs on Canada by 10%, so things are quite icy at the moment. And it stayed that way at the dinner. Although Mark Carney was not the man Trump wants to meet in South Korea, the big moment of this trip is still ahead. It's coming tomorrow morning when Trump will meet Chinese President Xi Jinping. It is the first time they will come face to face since Trump took office in January this year. He's locked in a trade war with Xi. There have been tariffs as high as 145%. There have been threats and counter-threats. A few moments of thaw, and then back again to trade tensions. Donald Trump hopes tomorrow's meeting can change that.
President Xi of China is coming tomorrow here, and we're going to be, I hope, making a deal. I think we're going to have a deal. I think it'll be a good deal for both. And that's really a great result. You know, that's better than fighting and going through all sorts of problems. And
so he says they'll have a deal. Let's wait and see. Meanwhile, if there's one big takeaway from this tour, it is this. Asia has found a way to manage Trump. From gold accessories to personal flattery, big investment checks, and even bigger ceremonies. The region has mastered the art of wooing Trump. In another century, diplomats studied Machiavelli. Today, they study Mar-a-Lago psychology and how to add gold to everything.
Prime Minister Modi is the nicest looking guy. He says, oh, and he looks like you'd like to have your father. Like, he's a killer. He's tough as hell. No, we will fight. I said, whoa, this is the same man that I know.
What does Donald Trump want from India? It's a million-dollar question in New Delhi. Does he want a trade deal? Does he want a Nobel Peace nomination? Does he want a state visit? Nobody knows what his intentions are. Just look at his speech in South Korea today. It's a full bag of mixed signals. Trump was actually speaking to a group of CEOs, but as usual, he veered to conflicts. And as usual, he turned to India and Pakistan. I'll play out what he said. Try to spot all the mixed signals there.
Great respect and love. As you know, for Prime Minister Modi, we have a great relationship. Likewise, the Prime Minister of Pakistan is a great guy, and the Field Marshal, they have a Field Marshal. You know why he's a Field Marshal? He's a great fighter. He really is. He's a great guy, too. And this is a big thing. These are two nuclear nations, and they're really going at it. And I called Prime Minister Modi. I said, we can't make a trade deal with you. No, we must make a trade deal. I said, no, we can't. You're starting a war with Pakistan. We're not going to do it. And then I called Pakistan. I said, we're not going to do trade with you because you're fighting with India. And, you know, two nuclear nations. And they said, no, you should let us fight. They both said that. You know, they're warring. They're strong people, I'll tell you what. Prime Minister Modi is the nicest looking guy. He says, and he looks like you'd like to have your father, like, he's a killer. He's tough as hell. No, we will fight. I said, whoa, this is the same man that I know. But after a little while, and they're good people, and after literally 2 days, they called up and they said, we understand, and they stopped fighting. How is that? Isn't that amazing? Now,
let me quickly recap that. Trump has great love for Prime Minister Modi, but the Prime Minister of Pakistan is also a great guy. Trump says Prime Minister Modi is a strong leader, a killer, as he called him. But he also says Prime Minister Modi agreed to stop fighting Pakistan. Like I said, a bag of mixed signals. And a lot of it is also fabricated. Prime Minister Modi and President Trump did not speak during the India-Pakistan clashes. New Delhi made that very clear. There was no conversation from April to June between these two leaders. The only phone call was from US Vice President J.D. Vance to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And that did not cover trade. That call did not cover trade. J.D. Vance warned India that Pakistan would escalate, and Prime Minister Modi replied that India was ready. That was the call. So where is Trump getting his information from? Frankly, the source does not matter. After all, Trump has a tenuous relationship with facts. What matters is the intent. Why is Donald Trump doing what he is? What does he want from India? Simply put, obedience. And we're not saying this randomly. Let me explain this with examples. Let's look at the trade war first. Let's look at trade. Trump's reciprocal tariffs were indiscriminate. Ally, partner, rival, it did not matter. Everyone was hit with exorbitantly high rates. Then came the negotiations. And US allies went into flattery overdrive. They made serious concessions to clinch a trade deal with Trump. Japan agreed to buy American rice. Europe agreed to buy $750 billion worth of US energy. Qatar promised investments worth $240 billion, and Vietnam cut US tariffs to zero. All these deals follow the same pattern. You make concessions to Trump, and Trump gives you a deal. Well, India has refused to play that game. Hence the delay in getting an agreement. Another example is the India-Pakistan ceasefire. Trump has repeatedly claimed credit for ending the conflict. Pakistan has sided with his claims. They even nominated Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. Again, India did not play that game. New Delhi rejected any US role in the truce. Compare this to the ceasefire in Gaza. Both Israel and the Arab countries gave Trump credit. Also look at the Thailand-Cambodia truce. Both sides praised Trump for his mediation. Clearly, he's expecting the same from India. The problem is he's not getting it. Finally, look at the strategic positioning. Trump likes his partners to be with him or against him. There is no gray area. If he wants you to cut Russian oil, you must. If he wants you to de-risk from China, you must. Again, this is not India's position. We follow a policy of multi-alignment. Basically, warm ties with all major powers. Trump simply does not get that. Hence his effort to pressure and arm twist India. The question is, What is the broader goal? Well, there are two possibilities here. One, Trump sees India as a strategic rival in future, like Soviet Union was in the 20th century or China in this 21st century, a growing rival to America's worldview. This would explain his efforts to arm twist India. Of course, this possibility makes a huge assumption that Trump is a deep strategic thinker, that he is not only focused on countering China, he is focusing on the next possible challenge, that's India. So that's one possibility. Or second, he sees India as a renegade partner, sort of like a rebel within the US umbrella. He knows India is a partner, yet he sees India buying Russian oil, he sees India warming up to China, he sees India signing deals with Iran. So maybe he's trying to bring India back on track. Again, there's a problem here. There is no track. India has always explored multiple avenues. India was never part of America's camp. If that is Trump's goal, he better forget it. Indian politicians and people value their strategic autonomy. It's a policy shaped by centuries of colonialism and hardships. You would expect advisors to inform Trump about this, but I don't think golf buddies and sons-in-law are that qualified. It's official. Xi Jinping and Donald Trump will meet tomorrow. Trump has been talking about this summit for weeks. Today, China finally confirmed it. The meeting will happen on Thursday morning, and the world will be watching closely. The spotlight is on the trade war, of course. Many are hoping for a breakthrough or a truce. We've been telling you how the odds are stacked. But trade is not the only item on the agenda. China wants to raise the Taiwan issue too. And Trump is pushing for progress on other fronts. He wants movement on rare earth exports. He expects commitments on soybean purchases. He wants cooperation on the fentanyl crisis in the US. He wants progress on the TikTok deal. All of it could be on the table tomorrow. Needless to say, it's a high-stakes summit. So what can we expect? We'd say focus on three things. Number one, of course, is trade. It is the biggest issue right now. Earlier, the US said both sides had agreed on a framework, a basic outline for a future deal, something that would ease tensions and help them avoid more tariffs. But it looks like the final agreement is not ready. Reports suggest negotiations are still underway. They're still working on the fine print. But Trump is upbeat. He says progress is being made and that a deal is within reach.
Tomorrow morning is the one that most people find most interesting, and I think we're going to have a great meeting with President Xi of China, and a lot of problems are going to be solved. Okay?
You're optimistic.
Yeah, I'm very optimistic. I am. And I know a little bit about what's going on because, you know, we have been talking to them. We're not just walking into a meeting cold, but the relationship with China is very good. So I think we're going to have a very good outcome for our country and for the world, actually. I think it's important for the world.
Very good outcome, he says. By this time tomorrow, we'll learn what that means. The second issue at hand is the status of Taiwan. Beijing is making an aggressive push on this front. It wants to use this opportunity to reinforce its position on Taiwan. China has begun what's being called a media blitz. They're basically deploying Chinese mouthpieces. In the last few days, Xinhua, for instance, has published several articles. Xinhua is China's government news agency. It carried at least 3 articles on Taiwan, all saying the same thing, that Taiwan belongs to China and its reunification is inevitable. For China, it's a sensitive flashpoint. Experts say the media blitz is more than messaging, it's more like a warning to both Taipei and Washington. China is telling them it won't tolerate Taiwan's move towards independence, and Xi Jinping is expected to make that clear in his meeting with Trump tomorrow, that Taiwan is non-negotiable. So that's the second issue. Number 3, chips and rare earths. Again, a sensitive and closely watched matter. China controls most of the world's rare earth supplies. These minerals are used in everything from electric cars to smartphones and even military equipment. And that makes them a powerful bargaining chip. Beijing has been putting it to good use. Earlier this month, China tightened its grip on supplies. It introduced new restrictions. It curbed the export of rare earths to the US, ostensibly for national security reasons, but actually to punish the United States. The Americans banned chip supplies to China, so this was a tit-for-tat move. Over the weekend, both sides met in Kuala Lumpur. Chips and rare earths were discussed in that meeting. They seem to have found middle ground. China could delay supply curbs, but only for 1 year, and in return, the US may pause chip restrictions. In fact, Trump is already discussing these concessions in public. He says he could offer China NVIDIA's most powerful AI chip. That's the Blackwell model. This chip is used for artificial intelligence. It's one of the most advanced chips in the world. Trump spoke to reporters on his way to South Korea. He mentioned the Blackwell chip. He said he may talk to Xi Jinping about it. He called it the super-duper chip.
We'll be speaking about Blackwell. We'll be speaking about Blackwell as the super-duper chip.
Trump has not revealed exactly what he is offering, but even mentioning the chip sends a message. So those three issues will dominate the talks tomorrow: trade, Taiwan, and the battle over chips and rare earths. Three key focus points. Together, they shape the relationship. They touch every aspect of US-China ties, economic competition, national security, and the broader pursuit of global influence. It covers all of it. So this is not just a meeting about tariffs. It's about where the world's two biggest powers stand and where they go from here. Outside of that core agenda, a few more things could come up. Trump is likely to raise China's role in the fentanyl crisis, and the two leaders are expected to finalize the TikTok deal, a deal that shifts TikTok's US operations into American hands. But again, compared to trade, Taiwan, and tech, these issues are just side notes. Tomorrow's conversation could decide if the competition between the US and China will spiral into conflict. Of course, we'll be tracking it closely. Our next story is about Nokia. If you are a millennial, I'm sure it brings back a flood of memories. The snake game, the iconic ringtone, and the brick phones that could survive a 3-story fall. But when smartphones came into the picture, Nokia went out of fashion. Its phones were no longer popular. No one was talking about the company. Until yesterday, that is. That's when NVIDIA made this announcement.
Aerial is essentially a wireless communication system running on top of CUDA-X. We're going to create, for the first time, a software-defined, programmable computer that's able to communicate wirelessly and do AI processing at the same time. This is completely revolutionary. We call it NVIDIA Arc. And Nokia is going to work with us to integrate our technology.
NVIDIA is investing $1 billion in Nokia. $1 billion. It will take a 2.9% stake in Nokia. I know what you're thinking. Why is NVIDIA investing so much money in Nokia? Didn't the company go bust? Well, the answer is no. Nokia may have stopped making phones, but it shape-shifted. It became a global telecom infrastructure company. Today, Nokia is big in 5G networks, fiber infrastructure, cloud systems, data centers networking, and telecom equipment. Currently, it is working on 6G technology. So Nokia is not trying to be Apple or Samsung anymore. It is trying to be the backbone of the internet. Instead of phones, it sells the networks that phones run on. So what is this deal about? Like I said, NVIDIA is investing in Nokia. They're buying shares worth $1 billion, which gives NVIDIA about 2.9% ownership of Nokia. And Nokia will use this money to boost its AI and network tech. Both companies will build AI-powered networks. They will create future 6G systems together. Think of it like this. NVIDIA makes the super brains, that is chips, and Nokia builds the super highways that the brains need to connect with each other. And 6G is particularly important. It's not just about faster internet, it's about supporting the AI infrastructure. And Nokia is one of the few companies that know how to build it. So again, what does Nokia get out of it? Money, sure, $1 billion does help. But more importantly, it gets access to NVIDIA's AI tech. It gets a seat at the AI table. It plays a key role in the AI infrastructure. And all of that is important for Nokia. Until now, they were building quietly. NVIDIA put a spotlight on it. So now investors see it too. Look at Nokia's stock. It jumped more than 20% after the announcement. Next question. What's in it for NVIDIA? They are a chip maker after all. Why are they getting into the 6G business? NVIDIA is basically building a global AI empire. In the last few months, it has invested $5 billion in Intel. It has planned a $100 billion partnership with OpenAI, put $500 million into an autonomous car startup, funded cloud data infrastructure in the UK, announced partnerships with Hyundai and Palantir, started building AI supercomputers for the US government, and now they've bought a stake in Nokia for 6G. Also look at the timing. NVIDIA has become the world's first $5 trillion company. You heard that right, $5 trillion. NVIDIA is the first ever company to reach this milestone. Its market value is more than several nations combined. If NVIDIA were a country, it would sit at number 4. Just below the US, China, and Germany, among the top 5 economies in the world. Its CEO, Jensen Huang, is optimistic. He says NVIDIA expects $500 billion in AI chip orders.
We now have visibility. I think we're probably the first technology company in history to have visibility into $500 billion of cumulative Blackwell and early ramps of Rubin through 2026. And as you know, 2025 is not over yet, and 2026 hasn't started. This is how much business is on the books. $500 billion worth so far.
Tying up with the world's richest company works for Nokia. A decade ago, people thought Nokia was finished. But in 2025, NVIDIA has partnered with it for the next generation of the internet. It shows you how tech has funny comebacks. In fact, Nokia has given us 2 lessons. 1, if you fail to innovate, you'll be out of the picture even if you're the market leader today. And 2, if you keep your head down and focus, you could define the next decade. The Nokia you remember played Snake. The Nokia of the future will help power AI super networks and 6G cities. It did not vanish. It was leveling up while no one was watching. And now NVIDIA has just made sure that everyone is watching them. Can mutual fund investments in India finally get cheaper? India's market watchdog, SEBI, is shaking things up. It has proposed a major overhaul of how mutual funds charge you. From management fee to brokerage costs, everything is under the scanner. The goal? Simpler and clearer pricing and more value for everyday investors. If these changes go through, you could see lower fees, fewer hidden charges, and better transparency in where your money goes. It's a move that could reshape India's $900 billion mutual fund industry. Of course, fund companies are not happy about this, but for retail investors, this could be a real win. Our next report tells you how.
Can mutual funds get cheaper? That's the question India's market regulator SEBI is trying to answer. SEBI is the Securities and Exchange Board of India. It has proposed sweeping changes, and these changes could make mutual funds simpler, clearer, and maybe even cheaper. Let's explain what this means for you. If you invest in mutual funds, you already pay a small fee. It's called the expense ratio. This is the cost the fund charges you for managing your money. It's automatically deducted from your investment's value. So, most people don't even notice it. But over time, even a small fee can eat into your returns. Now, SEBI wants to tighten the rules. It says these costs need to be clearer and possibly lower. Right now, some fees like brokerage and taxes are bundled inside the expense ratio. That makes it hard to tell how much of your money is going where. SEBI wants a breakup of charges. No more hidden costs, no more surprises, just a clean line-by-line bill for every mutual fund investor. The regulator also wants to cut brokerage fees. That's the fee charged when a mutual fund buys or sells shares for you. Right now, it's around 0.12. SEBI wants to bring it down to just 0.02. That's nearly 6 times cheaper. Think of it like this. If your food delivery app charged you $12 in service fees, SEBI wants it to be just $2 instead. SEBI also wants to cut fees on complex trades like derivatives. Right now, the fee is 0.05. SEBI wants to bring it down to 0.01. But this isn't just about saving money. It's about making the system more transparent. India's mutual fund industry is massive, worth nearly $900 billion. And since the pandemic, more everyday Indians have started investing. They're moving money from gold and property into mutual funds. SEBI wants to make sure those investors are protected and they are getting a fair deal. Some funds may still charge more, but only if they can prove they've delivered better returns in the past. In other words, SEBI wants fund houses to earn their fee and not just charge it. It's also asking fund companies to keep their mutual fund business separate from other financial services they offer. No overlap, no confusion, no conflict of interest. The market reaction? Mixed. Shares of top asset management companies fell sharply this week, because if fees drops, so will their profits. But for investors, this could be a big win. Cheaper, simpler, clearer. That's what SEBI is pushing for. The regulator has asked for public feedback by November the 17th. And if the plan goes through, mutual fund investors can get more value for their money.
It's not even November yet, but speculation is rife about next year's Republic Day, about who the chief guest will be. It's always been a political decision. The guest symbolizes India's strategic priorities, and this time the needle is pointing at Europe. Reports say India has invited the top European Union leadership. That's President of EU Commission Ursula von der Leyen and President of European Council Antonio Costa. If true, this would be a first. European heads of state have attended the Republic Day parade before in India, but never EU heads. Never European Union heads. Reports say the invite has already been sent. Once confirmed, India and the EU will announce it. And this is a big deal. Like I said, a Republic Day invite is not just about hospitality, it's about sending a message. Who are your friends? Who are you counting on? Who are you doing business with? In this case, the message is clear. India and Europe want to deepen their relations. And this is not happening out of the blue. We saw the first indications in February. That's when EU President von der Leyen traveled to India. And she did not travel alone. She came with the entire College of Commissioners. It was their first such visit outside the European continent. In Delhi, von der Leyen held talks with Prime Minister Modi. They agreed to fast-track a free trade agreement. Then in June, India's foreign minister traveled to Brussels. He took part in the maiden India-EU strategic dialogue. Then last month, another EU team visited India, this time including 27 EU ambassadors. And this month, the EU released its new strategic document. It calls for upgrading relations with India. So a Republic Day invite is not surprising. If anything, it's a natural progression in ties. The question is, what has triggered this warmth? And what are the next steps? The answer to the first question is Donald Trump. His policies have triggered this warmth between India and the EU. Europe had always depended on America for protection. They counted on the US to keep them safe. But under President Donald Trump, that is not guaranteed. He wants Europe to take the lead in defending itself. Also, there are tariffs. The US is Europe's biggest export market, but now they face 15% tariffs. So Brussels is looking for alternatives, both for trade and for political support. On India's side, there are similar concerns. Trump has imposed 50% tariffs on Indian exports, 50% tariffs. He's also warming up to India's rival Pakistan. But the European Union is not doing that. Yes, they have urged India to rethink its oil purchases. At times, they have criticized New Delhi too. But sanctions? Well, Europe has not gone that far, which is why New Delhi and Brussels are ganging up. They feel their common interests outweigh their differences. Now to the second question. What are the next steps? All eyes are on the free trade deal now. India's Commerce Minister was in Brussels this week. He says half of the draft chapters have been completed.
We have agreed to close 10 out of 20 chapters. Another 4 or 5 chapters have in principle been broadly decided. The trade minister visits India maybe end of November or sometime in December, as we discussed. We should be in a position to make significant and substantial progress towards closure.
An EU trade team is also in India. They met Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar and Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. So the free trade deal is the top focus. Both sides are hoping to seal an agreement by the end of 2025. Then it can be signed in January. Reports say the annual India-EU summit will also be held that month. If so, it becomes a natural deadline, a perfect chance to sign and start the deal, and it benefits both sides. India-EU trade stands at $136 billion. That's more than India's trade with China or the US. What's more, we have a surplus. Indian exports stand at $76 billion. India's imports stand at $60 billion. So a free trade deal will be beneficial to both sides. Even beyond that, there are multiple avenues to explore, like weapons, skilled migration, and investments. It's a question of capitalizing on this momentum. Our next story is from Africa. It's about a war the world has almost forgotten. The war in Sudan. It has been raging for more than 2 years, and it has torn the country apart. Two groups are battling for control. On one side is the Sudanese army. On the other is a paramilitary group called the RSF, Rapid Support Forces, RSF. Both of them were once allies, the army and RSF. But now they're at war for control. This week, the RSF took control of a city in the Darfur region. The city is called Al Fasher. It was the last major city that the army still held in the region. The army says it withdrew to save civilian lives. But reports from the ground tell a darker story. Satellite images show rows of bodies and pools of blood. Aid groups report executions and ethnic killings. And rights groups say Darfur is on the edge of another genocide. Our next report has more.
Sudan's civil war has entered a new and dangerous phase. After 2 years of war, the country has been split into two. Its army in the north and east, and a powerful paramilitary force now ruling the west and parts of south. That force is called the Rapid Support Forces, or the RSF, and this week it captured the last major city still held by the army in the Darfur region. The city is called El Fasher. It is the capital of North Darfur State. Now it is the latest symbol of Sudan's collapse. For nearly 18 months, El Fasher was under siege, surrounded, starved, and bombed. Then the RSF moved in. Its fighters stormed the army's headquarters, declared victory, and posted videos online claiming control. Sudan's army chief, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, later confirmed it.
Everyone has followed what happened in Al Fashir. Certainly, the leadership there, including security, made assessments that they have to leave the city due to the systematic destruction and killing of civilians. We agreed with them to leave the city and go to a safe place so as to spare the rest of the citizens and the rest of the city from destruction.
For those still trapped in the city, the aftermath has been brutal. Satellite images show rows of what appear to be human bodies. Aid groups have reported executions, beatings, and ethnic killings. The United Nations says many of the victims were shot as they tried to flee. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres called it a terrible escalation.
It is clear that we have not only a Sudanese problem with an army and the rapid support forces fighting each other, we have more and more an external interference that undermines the possibility to a ceasefire and to a political solution of the problem.
To be clear, this is not a new war. It began in April 2023. That year, Sudan's two main forces, the army and the RSF, turned their guns on each other. Both had once ruled together after a coup. Both wanted full control, and both have now turned Sudan into the world's biggest humanitarian crisis. More than 12 million people have been displaced. Over tens of thousands of people have been killed. Half the country reportedly faces hunger, and in Darfur, famine has already begun. Darfur has seen this kind of horror before. 2 decades ago, Arab militias called the Janjaweed wiped out non-Arab communities there. Those same militias later became the RSF. They are now accused of doing it again. Witnesses who escaped El Fasher say men were separated, beaten, and shot. Women were spared, only to hear the gunfire behind them. The UN says sexual violence is widespread. Aid workers say the city's hospitals have been bombed, looted, or destroyed. The world's response has been slow but growing. Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Qatar, among others, have all reportedly condemned the killings. The UN has called for concrete actions to protect civilians. But the conflict still continues. The RSF denies committing atrocities, but an army-aligned group accuses the RSF of executing 2,000 in El Fasher. Analysts warn the fall of El Fasher could reshape Sudan's war map. It could mark the start of a divided nation ruled by rival forces. Peace talks remain stalled, and famine is spreading fast. For millions caught in between, the war shows no sign of ending.
History is full of political blunders, trusting the wrong person, betting on the wrong side, or making the wrong moves. We've seen a lot of these. But if ever a list is to be made, Pakistan may rank on top, all thanks to their blunder in Kabul. Pakistan spent years arming and cultivating the Taliban. They cheered when the Taliban returned to power. And now, they're both on the brink of war. Let me tell you what happened in Istanbul, in Turkey. That's where Pakistan and the Taliban met for talks. The first round was in Doha. It secured a ceasefire. The second round was in Turkey. This was to secure a broader agreement. But it did not go to plan. Pakistan wanted Kabul to contain the TTP, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, better known as the Pakistani Taliban. Pakistan wanted Kabul to control them. Now, this TTP, the Pakistani Taliban, do share some ethnic bonds with the Afghan Taliban, but otherwise they are separate groups. And recently, the TTP has been attacking Pakistan. So again, Islamabad wants Kabul to help. It says Afghanistan is sheltering these TTP terrorists. Of course, Kabul denies this. They said the same thing in Istanbul. They said that they had no control over the TTP, so they cannot stop them from attacking Pakistan. At this point, the talks broke down. Both sides had some tense exchanges. After that, they left. Pakistan was furious. Look at what the Defence Minister Khwaja Asif is saying, and I'm quoting, Pakistan does not require to employ even a fraction of its full arsenal to completely obliterate the Taliban regime and push them back to the caves for hiding. That's a very strong statement. Pakistan is threatening to obliterate the Taliban, the same Taliban they funded and built. Irony aside, how serious is this threat? Well, it's coming from a shaky source, Defence Minister Khwaja Asif. This is the same man who cited social media as proof of Pakistan's victory over India. So take his remarks with a pinch of salt. In fact, last weekend, he made a similar statement. Khwaja Asif declared that failure in Istanbul would mean open war. Well, Istanbul was a failure. So will there be an open war between Islamabad and Kabul? And so far, Pakistan has been careful. They have refrained from all-out attacks. Instead, they've carried out targeted operations. One such operation came in early October. That's what triggered this latest round of escalations. But will Pakistan go beyond that? That may depend on three factors. Number one, the pressure on Pakistan's army. Asim Munir has billed himself as Pakistan's savior. Yet, under his watch, the TTP has killed hundreds of Pakistanis. Some of them his own soldiers. What sort of savior cannot protect his own people? So Asim Munir is under pressure at home, and that may dictate his actions. Factor number two, the perceived India threat. Pakistan says New Delhi is controlling Kabul. Again, this came from Khwaja Asif, the defense minister. He says India is using the Taliban to wage a low-intensity war, basically to bleed Pakistan. It's false, but that's how Islamabad feels. And that will make them think twice, because in their mind, this would be a two-front war, a war with Afghanistan and India, and it's a war that Pakistan cannot afford. Finally, factor number three, foreign support. We are talking both political and military support. Pakistan will be hoping for more weapons from the US. It may also seek some sort of global sanction, maybe a green light from the United Nations Security Council. Then a wider operation would make sense. But as things stand, this is unlikely. The West may not be buddies with the Taliban, but they won't disturb the status quo. They feel the Taliban is a lesser evil in Afghanistan. The bigger evil, according to them, is the Islamic State. But war or not, this is a tense period in South Asia. Pakistan's army cannot afford to be seen as doing nothing. So this conflict is far from over. There are moments when a country finally listens. Our next story is about one such moment. Lawmakers in France have voted to change something that should have never needed debate: the definition of rape. For years, justice demanded a proof of struggle. But now Paris has finally voted to change that. Any non-consensual sexual act will be considered rape. And bringing about this change is one woman, Gisèle Pellicot. Our next report tells you how her story made France change its rape law.
For years, French rape law asked the wrong question: how hard did you fight? Now, at last, it asks the right one: did you choose this? It's a simple shift in language, a monumental shift in dignity. This is the story of how France has redefined consent, and this change matters far beyond the courtroom. France's parliament has approved a bill redefining rape and sexual assault as any non-consensual sexual act. Consent must now be freely given, informed, specific, prior, and revocable. Silence is not consent. Freezing in fear is not consent. Giving in because you're scared, tired, drugged, or trapped, that is also not consent. That should be obvious. But for decades, French law treated rape primarily as physical force and violence, not lack of consent. If you didn't scream, claw, or bleed your way through the attack, your trauma was often legally invisible. But not anymore. French MPs voted to define rape as any non-consensual sexual act. Parliament members in France's National Assembly voted 155 to 31 in favor of the measure. So what changed this? Or shall I say, who? This change was heralded by a woman called Gisèle Pellicot. She was drugged by her husband and raped by over 50 men across 9 years. She survived what no one should. Then she went a step further. She testified in the case. A total of 51 accused were convicted of raping her. The case rattled France. It pushed a private shame into public outrage, and all of this forced a national reckoning. So, France is now saying consent has to be real, clear, and ongoing. You cannot assume consent from silence. Consent can be withdrawn at any time. If someone is drugged, unconscious, manipulated, or afraid, they cannot consent. But not everyone agrees with this premise. Far-right lawmakers voted against this bill. They say consent is subjective, shifting, difficult to grasp. Yes, consent requires attention, communication, and responsibility. But should the ambiguity of human behavior protect abusers? Or should the law protect those who live through trauma instead of those who cause it? The answer feels obvious, unless you benefit from ambiguity. And France is not the only one. Countries like Spain, Belgium, Germany, Sweden have already adopted consent-based definitions. This won't erase the pain already carried or rewrite the stories already lived, but it shifts the burden from the victims to society. Consent isn't complicated. Silence shouldn't be construed as a yes. Survival shouldn't be contingent on acceptance of assault. France's new rape law cannot heal trauma, but it can honor it. And sometimes, that's where justice begins.
Our next story is about a plane. It flies faster than sound, and it doesn't make the explosive noise that we've heard before. It claims to break the sound barrier quietly. It's something that scientists have tried to achieve for decades. The concept, of course, is called supersonic flight. In other words, traveling faster than sound. That is supersonic. And what's the speed of sound? More than 1,200 kilometers per hour, or Mach 1, as they call it. When an aircraft hits that speed, 1,200 kilometers per hour, it creates a massive shock wave. This is known as a sonic boom. In the past, that boom was so loud that countries banned supersonic flights over land. But now NASA is trying to change that. Yesterday, it flew an experimental jet, a jet that is designed to turn that deafening boom into a soft thump. And if it works, it could change how the world flies. Here's a report.
For more than a century, a flight has been a race against time. From the first propeller planes to the jet age, humanity's goal was simple: to go faster. And in the 1970s, we reached that dream. It was called the supersonic flight. Supersonic means flying faster than sound. That means more than 1,200 kilometers per hour, or Mach 1. At that speed, a plane outruns its own sound waves. Those waves collide behind it and hit the ground as a thunderous shock, the sonic boom. Two planes defined that era. In the West, it was the Concorde, British and French engineering at its peak. In the East, the Soviet Tupolev Tu-144, the first jet in the world to fly supersonic. Both were technological marvels. Both promised to change how humans traveled. But there was one problem: the noise. That sonic boom was deafening. People on the ground complained of windows shaking and buildings rattling. The backlash grew quickly. In 1973, the United States banned overland supersonic flight. Some other countries soon followed. Supersonic travel was confined to routes over water. For a while, the dream survived, but only just. By the turn of the 21st century, the era eventually ended. For years since then, research has been underway to solve the problem of noise in supersonic flight. And this week, that question was finally tested. NASA's experimental jet, the X-59, took to the skies over California. The jet is built by Lockheed Martin, a company known for designing stealth aircraft. It's a narrow, needle-shaped jet, which is nearly 30 meters long. Every curve is designed to reshape sound. Instead of a boom, it's built to make a soft thump, no louder than a car door closing. That's the breakthrough NASA is chasing. Over the coming months, the X-59 will fly over selected American communities. Microphones on the ground will record its sound. Residents will report what they hear. That data will help regulators decide if quiet supersonic travel can finally return over land. In June this year, the U.S. government took the first step. An executive order directed the Federal Aviation Administration to rewrite the old rules that have banned supersonic flight for years. And aviation companies are already preparing. Boom Supersonic, based in Colorado, has tested its prototype, the XB-1, which broke the sound barrier earlier this year. Its future aircraft, the Overture, aims to fly passengers at nearly twice the speed of today's planes. But the next generation of supersonic jets will only succeed if they can fly fast, without disturbing those below. That's the challenge the X-59 is built to solve. Its mission is not commercial, but scientific, to collect the data that could shape the rules of tomorrow. Still, big questions remain. But for now, the X-59 marks a beginning. A quiet step towards a faster future. Because the next stage of flight may not start with a boom, but with a soft thump.
"2025 keeps getting weirder. We've seen chip wars, we've seen artificial intelligence wars. Now we're seeing an online encyclopedia war, also known as UFC for nerds. I'm sure you've heard of and used Wikipedia. Well, Elon Musk has created a new rival for it. It's called Grokipedia. And the name is not the only thing that's similar. There's now a Wikipedia page on Grokipedia, basically a page about Musk's Grokipedia on the Wikipedia database. And guess what it says? That some articles have been copied verbatim from Wikipedia. I guess the encyclopedia war has truly begun. Now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. India's President Draupadi Murmu takes a sortie in a Rafale fighter jet. Spain's Valencia marks flood anniversary with mass protests. And lions, lemurs and rhinos feast on Halloween treats at the British Zoo. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1929, Black Tuesday hit the Wall Street. 16 million shares were sold on the stock market in a single day. $14 billion were wiped out, impacting thousands of investors. This stock market crash triggered the Great Depression. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Una por cada una de las personas que van a estar. No hay problema.
Want the facts?
The latest developments?
News that gets straight to the point.
Well, we've got all three just for you. This is Firstpost Live, a brand new show, your window into what really matters.
Don't miss it.